Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Chris Ensing. Meg is away tonight. Here's what we have for you this evening. Police in Ontario lay more charges against an alleged poison seller. We have the latest in the investigation and the case against Kenneth Law. The last council meeting of 2023 gets feisty. New start times, a new home for curling, and a familiar fight over the Ambassador Bridge blockade. Plus, new details about how people will buy beer, wine, and liquor in the years to come. We look at the big provincial changes ahead. Police in Ontario have laid more than a dozen additional and more serious charges in connection with the international sale of a poisonous substance. Kenneth Law of Mississauga is already in custody on several counts related to websites that sold a deadly chemical to people who later died by suicide. Court documents show that one of the alleged victims is from Windsor. CBC's Katie Nicholson has the details.
A significant update on a sprawling case.
Today I can share that police have laid an additional 14 charges of second-degree murder in relation to this case.
These latest charges against alleged poison seller Kenneth Law, on top of the charges he already faces in Ontario for counseling or aiding suicide in connection with the deaths of 14 people between the ages of 16 and 36, including 19-year-old Ashton Prosser from Windsor and 21-year-old Stephen Mitchell Jr. of Toronto. Law ran several websites which shipped products which could be used for self-harm, including sodium nitrite. These new second-degree murder charges require a higher burden of proof.
One difference with second-degree murder is that it's a deliberate act, and you either have to prove that the person intended death either as a result of their actions or that it was intended to cause death.
Police say Law shipped 160 packages from his websites within Canada, but as many as 1,200 to 40 countries. There are investigations underway in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Quebec, and around the world. In the U.S., the FBI probing the death of Benji Cohn, according to his brother, Gerald. He welcomes the new charges against Law.
I would love for Kenneth Law to be punished here in the U.S. as well, but you know he's got his hands full with all these other countries. So, I mean, it almost seems like a get in line type thing.
In the UK, where Tom Parfitt died by suicide, allegedly after ingesting chemicals purchased from Law, his father hopes these new charges thwart others.
Kenneth Law isn't the only person out there providing suicide kits, and I hope it sends a loud message to those people that they will be prosecuted.
Law is still a long way from a trial. By the time he's had his day in court in Ontario, he may be facing many more in other jurisdictions. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Windsor's last regularly scheduled council meeting of 2023 went out with a bit of a bang. A fiery debate over earlier start times, red flags raised about the new home for Roseland curling, and outrage that $1 million the city paid for Freedom Convoy expenses won't be covered by the federal government.
Never been more offended, frankly, than receiving this letter.
It comes from the federal government saying they'll pay $6 million for the concrete barriers, policing costs, and other city expenses tied to last year's Ambassador Bridge blockade. But there's nearly $1 million left in legal costs the city expects to pay.
And it's a middle finger to the people in our community, and they're saying you pick up $1 million of cost when at a municipal level we were required to provide an immediate response for an incident that clearly was not a municipal issue.
Windsor-Tecumseh Liberal MP Eric Kuzmarchuk says the federal government is following through on a promise to pay for eligible costs and paying half of the legal fees. He says it's based on the deal with the city of Ottawa and that the city should renew requests to the province to help pay for Windsor's response. Ontario has not put any money toward the bill. Council then clashed over start times for next year's meetings. Administration recommends a new time of 1 p.m. instead of the current 4 o'clock start, saying it could save $10,000 to $20,000 in overtime expenses a year. This delegate says it comes at a steep cost for the public, saying earlier start times force people to take time off work.
I was confronted with the fact, well, we now have Teams and we have Skype, but that's not an option for a minimum wage earner who can't have their phone while they're on the clock at work, who doesn't sit in front of a computer.
During the hour-and-a-half debate, emotions ran high as some councillors pushed to pause the decision to allow for public consultation over fears of a non-transparent process.
If the public, after a consultation process, wants 1 o'clock, wants 10 o'clock, if they want to meet at 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm here. No problem, no questions. But we should get that direction from the people we serve.
And if we don't consult the public on something that is theirs, there's a fundamental flaw in this.
That push failed, and instead, a new time put on the table.
I think 10 a.m. works. I think we can do, our meetings at 10 a.m. There's other municipalities that do them even earlier than that. And then we can do in camera afterwards. And those residents who do want to show up in person, it's a lot easier to, say, hey, you know what, I'm going to show up at 10 a.m. and I'll be at work after. And if I got to work late that day, I can work late.
A divided council ties the vote with the split decision decided by the mayor passing the move to start council meetings at 10 in the morning starting next year. Dilkins highlighting that Toronto has dayside council meetings, adding that council meetings aren't the best place for people to talk to council.
The least effective time for a person to share their opinion and engage with City Council is in the theatre of City Council. The most effective time is to do what Terry Fink and many of the folks who are sitting here have done, which is to engage early, to come to the ward meetings.
Terry Fink and the many folks still sitting at City Hall were on hand to talk curling. Council has decided to put the city-owned Roseland Curling Club in another municipal arena, deciding in August to spend $500,000 on the move instead of a multi-million renovation or rebuild. Fink, an advocate for the curling club, was asked if the future of curling should go to 80 Knox, the WFCU Centre, Forest Glade, or the Capri Pizzeria Complex.
I would suggest to you strongly that you stop the process and you restart the process.
Fink said curlers were not properly consulted, a notion dismissed by city staff, who point to an online survey and public meetings as proof curlers were asked what they wanted. They weren't the only ice users upset with council's decision to move the rink. A person scheduling ice at Capri worried there won't be enough to go around.
If we get the 15,000 new homes that are proposed to be built over the next few years, if 2% of those homes have youth who want to play sports, that's 300 youth that will be involved in sports. We're not even talking about adults yet. That is 30 extra hockey teams if they all go into hockey. Where are these players going to play?
A staff report says there's enough ice time for everyone in the near future and that they will be able to accommodate a growing community. All minor associations will get the same ice time on the same day, but maybe at a different rink. Adults will get shifted around by a couple of hours.
Do we have the ice? Absolutely. Is it the exact times people want? Maybe not. But we definitely have ice for future growth.
In a near unanimous vote, council decided to move curling to Capri, with the rink expected to be ready in the South End complex for the fall season, a move council said is good for all ice users.
I think curling is going to flourish here moving forward. I think the sport is actually going to expand. And I truly believe that this decision, although not the decision that the current curlers want, is really the best decision for the future of this sport.
There's mixed reaction in Windsor when it comes to Ottawa's announcement requiring future international students to have more money before they arrive. The feds doubled the guarantees students are required to bring after they pay their tuition fees. CBC's TJ Deere reports.
When international students come to Canada, they need to have a Guaranteed Investment Certificate, or GIC for short. Right now, that amount is $10,000. Starting next year, it'll jump to more than $20,000. This required cash is above and beyond what they're already paying for tuition and travel, and the GIC is a way the feds say will ensure international students can pay for living expenses in Canada.
The more the GICs, the less the people from Punjab will come here, and they will less the number of students who will face less problems here.
The immigration minister made the announcement on Thursday, saying it was to target provinces that don't help house students or won't close schools he argues shouldn't be running.
Enough is enough. If provinces and territories cannot do this, we will do it for them, and they will not like the bluntness of the instruments that we use.
Miller also said the measures are meant to ensure international students aren't vulnerable to questionable employers and schools that'll leave the students unable to afford life in Canada. Although Ottawa hasn't ruled out putting a cap on the number of student visas issued, Singh believes the higher GIC will do that anyway.
The more the GIC, the more they think twice before applying to the Canada for the visa. The less they come here, the less they will struggle.
Another student disagrees, saying if she had to get $20,000, she wouldn't come to Canada.
It's not as easy as it may seem, right? Because you have to make sure that all that money is in check before you come. It's a disadvantage towards other migrants that would like to move over to Canada.
St. Clair College says the school supports Ottawa's move.
It's a security blanket, so to speak, for the cost of living and any difficulties students might find themselves in when they're here for their 2 or 3 years of education. So with the increase in cost of living, housing, groceries, you're seeing more and more students fall through the cracks.
Nobody from the University of Windsor was made available for an interview. The change in policy applies to new visa applications starting on January the 1st. TJ Deere, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor's female-focused job training organization held a breakfast event today to show its appreciation for its employer partners. Women's Enterprise Skills and Training of Windsor said the gathering was about gratitude and networking.
We're so excited to be able to reflect on the season, and one great way to do that is to say thank you. West has had a great year, and we want to celebrate our partners. We're celebrating the community, we're celebrating the employers that have worked with us to hire our clients. So it's really about saying thanks and just having a great morning.
West of Windsor has been helping local women become more employable since 1987. The organization estimating that around 3,000 women benefit from its program every year. Partnering employers represent a wide range of work fields, including financial institutions, manufacturing, and construction trades.
After having my son and going back to my prior career as a hairstylist, I had been seeing a few advertisements via social media stating there were programs for women interested in the trades. I knew I wanted a change. I'm now signed up as an electrical apprentice and have such a great team to work with at AIS. I'm learning something new every day, and the team is so welcoming and supportive.
CBC News has learned that on Thursday, the Ford government will announce changes to how alcohol is sold in this province. Our senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has been working his contacts to find out what those changes will be. Mike, what are you hearing?
Well, Chris, sources in the industry are telling me that these will be the biggest reforms in Ontario to the sale of booze since the end of Prohibition. Now, we're starting with corner stores. So corner stores, gas stations that sell food, all of those will be permitted to sell beer, wine, or cider. The same goes for any grocery store. So that means no more limits on how many supermarkets around Ontario have a license to sell. All of those locations will also be able to sell those ready-to-drink beverages, you know, those pre-mixed cocktails in a can, the vodka coolers, seltzers, that kind of thing. And that's a change because right now, those products are only available retail via the LCBO. Now, there's also going to be an end to the restrictions on the formats for selling beer. Right now, you can't get anything bigger than a 6-pack in an Ontario grocery store. They'll be able to sell 12 packs and cases of 12 and 2 4s, just like the convenience stores will. Here's a key thing, though, about all of this, Chris. Although the announcement comes on Thursday, industry sources tell me it's going to be 2 years before any of it actually happens. The changes will not take effect until January the 1st, 2026. Now, I did reach out to the Premier's officials for comment on the accuracy of this information that I've been given by my sources, and they did not respond.
Wow, that's a long runway time there. In the meantime, I guess we look at what we got right now. What's going to happen with the beer store and the LCBO?
Right, so both the privately owned beer store and the government-owned LCBO will continue to exist, and according to my sources, they're going to continue to make plenty of money. Now, let's start with the beer store. The province has a contract with the beer store that limits who else is allowed to sell beer? And that is in effect for another 2 years. It's the reason why the changes won't roll out until 2026. But after that, the beer store will still be allowed to keep its retail outlets. And I'm also told that it's going to be pretty well positioned to be the main distributor of beer to all of those new convenience store locations. So there's an opportunity for the multinational owners of the beer store to make some money. The LCBO, it continues as well. And while it might see some sort of impact on the volume of sales it has going through the cash registers at its retail locations, the LCBO still makes money when a bottle of wine is sold at a grocery store. And that is also going to happen with the convenience stores.
Okay, what's still up in the air about these changes that we're expecting?
Well, let's just say the fine print and some of the dollar figures, the numbers. The sources that I spoke to are, have heard that the government is going to commit to some changes to taxation of beer and wine, but they have no idea exactly what those changes are going to be. I'm also told there's going to be some requirements for stores to stock a minimum amount of products from Ontario craft brewers and small wineries, but again, no specifics. I did speak with Jordan St. John. He is an author and he tracks the business side of craft beer across Ontario. And I asked him what the changes are potentially going to mean for craft brewers.
There's a lot of additional shelf space. There's grocery, there's convenience store. But that means that you need more salespeople, you need more delivery drivers, you need more third-party delivery companies. And it could be a more expensive environment for them to exist in.
A few other things that are still up in the air. Will we see some kind of direct competition to the beer store and the wine rack with actual specialty stores selling nothing but beer or wine? What happens to the deposit return program at the beer store? And is there going to be any changes to the markup that the LCBO charges on products? Some of those answers we're expecting to find out on Thursday. Chris?
All right, a lot of people paying attention here. Big craft brewery industry here in Windsor, Essex, who will have their eyes on this. Thanks for this, Mike.
You're welcome.
CBC's Mike Crawley from Queen's Park tonight. Take a live look out there as we see the glow of downtown Windsor. Not a snowflake in sight. Nothing to worry about at all. At least we don't think. Let's take a look at that forecast coming up after the break. We've had rain, we've had some pretty intense fog, we've had some beautiful sunsets, but no snow that we've seen over the last little while. Hopefully none coming up in too big of amounts in the future here. Victor Paulo has a look at our weather.
Hope you're having yourself a beautiful Tuesday. Windsor, I hope you're having yourselves a great day. Couple of headlines to look forward to. Now, we know it's going to be quite the cold night up ahead. Once that cold night is out the way, we do have sunny days in store. And once those sunny days are out of that way, we do have a warm Friday coming our way. Who can't be upset with a warm Friday? Absolutely amazing things coming our way when it comes to the weather. Now, 2.4 is your average high. Remember that we're looking at 3 and 7 day forecast, and minus 4.2 is your average low. Look at that, same numbers. Now, here's what it looks like when it looks at our storm tracker. Now, we're not expecting any of this stuff like you see here. A lot of cloud cover, a lot of snow, a lot of flurries working its way through the majority of the province. But for us over here in our little corner of Windsor, well, nice and clear. It's going to be a little bit of a cold night tonight, but when it comes to Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to be able to have that sun because there's a high pressure system, as you can see here, over the region. Now, what does a high pressure system mean? Well, high pressure system means a couple of things. It means that there's going to be no clouds to block our way because you get to really just experience all that sun, get to experience a lot of that warmth that comes from the sun as well with a high pressure system. And as well, when a high pressure system also means when it comes to nighttime, there's not a lot of clouds to insulate that heat. So it does get much cooler like we're going to be experiencing tonight as well as for Wednesday night. But let's move on a little bit towards your Thursday and Friday. And you can see, same theme. It's going to be clear skies, and that's going to contribute to the warmer weather we'll be experiencing. Speaking of weather, when it comes to tomorrow morning, when my little Emmy and your little ones are getting ready, it's going to be -4, feeling like -9 with a bit of sun and cloud. And looking at our 3 and 7 day forecast for Windsor, well, it's going to be beautiful, as mentioned. Once we get over that little bit of a cold night on Wednesday, well, look at that Thursday, look at that Friday. A little bit of a high of a 6, high of a 9 for Thursday. When it comes to Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, well, it's going to be above seasonal until we get to about Tuesday where things start to balance out. But you know what? Until then, how about we're looking forward to a little bit of that Thursday and Friday sun. Have a great day, and over to you.
Sun's nice, but we could use a little bit of snow, just a little bit. Up next, we are going to take a look at a new plan to help build more houses, a bit of a copy and paste method. That's next. The federal government is planning to revive a post-war initiative to ramp up housing construction across the country. The objective is to accelerate the building process for developers. Kate McKenna has more.
Homes like this were built across Canada for World War II veterans, a response to the biggest housing crunch the country's ever seen. Now the federal government wants to do it again.
We are living in a housing crisis, but it's not the first time Canada's been here. We are going to be moving forward with a catalog of pre-approved designs.
1950s catalogs like this one offered prefabricated options for builders, bungalows and multi-story homes, all ready to be built fast.
For a fee of $10, you could actually have access to designs that could be built quickly. In many instances, these homes were being built in a period of about 36 hours.
The federal government is launching consultations next month to make a more modern catalog. Experts say this could shave a full year off of build times.
I was pleasantly surprised and very excited. This is something that I'd been talking about for a while.
This all comes as millions of Canadians are priced out of the market and struggling to pay rent, putting political pressure on the governing Liberals.
While Canadians can't afford their rent or even dream of buying a home, now they worry they won't be able to feed their families at all.
The right kind of.
But experts say it's a complicated problem with no one solution.
It's not any kind of silver bullet to this, right? We're not just snapping our fingers and saying like, oh, look at that, we've solved everything. It's a helpful contribution, but there's some other things that have to go along.
Obviously, there's a lot of hard work still left to do to make sure that we get the implementation right, but today is a fantastic day.
Housing Minister Sean Fraser says the new catalog will include different types of builds, including multiplexes, student housing, and seniors' residences. He calls it a modern solution to the housing problem. As for when it will be ready, he says they're aiming for the end of next year. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally tonight, in a grand act of mercy, the mayor of Miami has pardoned 2 pigs ahead of the holidays. That ensures that the little critters won't end up on a dinner plate this Christmas.
I, Daniela Levine Cava, Mayor of Miami-Dade County, hereby grant a full mayoral pardon for Taylor and Travis and wish them many happy, healthy years roaming their new Miami-Dade County home.
The pigs are, of course, named after Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, one of the world's most famous celebrity couples at the moment. Roast pork is a popular holiday meal among the many Hispanic residents of South Florida. This is the county's 6th annual pig pardoning ceremony. Those pigs looked at destiny and they found a way to shake it off. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. We've got all of our stories on our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget, you can watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network. It's 10 on the CBC News app, CBC TV. And we've got that streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Have yourself a wonderful evening.